Okay, we will get started. We'll call to order the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners study session for Wednesday, December 13th, 2017. We could rise for the pledge, led by Commissioner Mayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Sarah.
Lathrop?
I'm here.
Mayor?
Here.
Gorflett? Here. Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Crawford?
Here
Show Klaus and Johnson absent at the moment.
at the moment. I have confidence that they will be here. The weather is not good. Okay, this is our first chance for public comment. Sarah, would you read the rules, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may at his or her discretion extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Okay, does anybody have public comment at this time? Nobody's even flinching. Okay, we will move on. So we have 4 items for discussion today. We will start with the Lafreniere property.
And Chairman Crawford, if you would not mind if we could switch up the agenda a little bit to allow for some people that are here that need to be here for the discussion.
Okay.
We'd like to have the Lafreniere last on the agenda, if
Okay.
possible. My apologies
Let's-
for not.
That's okay. It's a study session. We can do whatever we want. Okay, Tart Trail, Boardman Loop. Welcome.
Thank you. I'll be quick,
You don't have to be.
as quick as I can be.
Okay.
All right. My name is Julie Clark. I'm the Executive Director of Tart Trails. Thanks for having me this evening. Sorry, I'm trying to... there we go. Okay, now I'm here and together. I'm here to just give you an update tonight on the Boardman Lake Loop. It's been a while since we've been before you, and I'm delighted to share some good news. Just to kind of refresh, it's helpful, we are in the engineering and construction design phase right now. And what that means is we are putting together the package to be able to bid the trail for construction, we hope, as early as summer 2018. It might be a little later depending on the grants that we're applying for. So as you may recall, the Boardman Lake Loop is a joint project between Grand Traverse County, the City of Traverse City, Garfield Township, and Tart Trails. Back in September of 2016, my years are starting to slip by, this preliminary design in front of you was adopted by the City of Traverse City and Garfield Township and presented to the county. Since this adoption, we have been working with, again, those entities all together and putting together what will be the final design. So as part of the construction engineering, we went through, said this is what we would like, but we knew there were going to be some changes. And I'm going to talk about 3 scope changes that happened between then and now, just so we know where we land when I show you the engineered drawings or the engineered alignment in a minute. So if you recall, the project starts at 14th Street, which is where the current trail ends today by the Lake Ridge condos, and heads along MDOT Rail's property and active track to NMC, and then over to Logan's Landing and Medali Park. So that was the terminus as depicted back in 2016. The scope changes that have occurred will be 3. The first is an agreement with NMC. As we were working through this preliminary alignment, we were working closely with NMC. That was known to be a to be determined. So we spent about 6 months, almost a year, working with NMC to determine what their alignment, what their preferred alignment is. And we'll see in a minute that that did indeed change and offered an opportunity to make an even better transit connection. So that's our second major scope change. And then the third is a Medali Park extension, a new bridge. So I'll talk about that in a second. So just a reminder of the character sketches that came out. This was a very involved public input process. Over 245 people had direct input into the design. There were multiple open houses. We had stakeholder groups that continued to be engaged, as well as interviews and focus groups, to make sure that we understood the values that were to be reflected in the design of the trail. And one of those values was the ability to take opportunities for view sheds of this incredible topographic kind of feature that we have on the west side. You're able to see things on the lake that you simply can't see when you're on the east side. So there are several boardwalk overlook structures that are included in the final design. The big kind of output piece for the preliminary design was what we call the cove crossing. So this is situated so that if you're looking at NMC over to Logan's Landing, there was the original design, the original alignment for the Boardman Lake had it going around the cove. Due to both access issues as well as cost, it was actually cheaper and better to build the cove crossing. We do have improvements along the way. Again, a public value that was expressed time and time again was access to the water. People wanted the opportunity to enjoy Boardman Lake. So there are several places where you can stop and actually access the water either through kayak launches or observation piers. Again, ADA access was really important. We wanted to try to make a universal design for this trail, so we do have observation piers that allow for that type of accessibility, and again, capture those view sheds along the trail. There are two proposed bridge crossings for the trail, one over the river between Logan's Landing on the west side and Medali Park on the east side. So the bridge that you see depicted there is the one across the river, and that is because we couldn't use the private bridge just to the south of this one. So this will make a complete connection around the loop to Medali. As I mentioned, there were three scope changes that happened between preliminary design and today. The first is a new bridge that will connect Medali Park over to the existing East Side Trail, and that came up multiple times because the facility that exists along South Airport Road today is, number one, impassable this time of year. You can't keep snow off of it, and this is a loop that is meant to be used year-round, so there will be snow removal planned year-round. And the other part of the South Airport facility is it's not ADA accessible. It's not a safe and comfortable facility for a lot of people. It gets very slick, it has tight corners, and it's about 6 feet wide, so it really doesn't meet the needs of today's travel. And so we had an opportunity to apply for a trust fund grant to be able to connect the east side to Medali. The second major scope change was Dendrinos Drive to Cass, and this really was driven by NMC's decision to not only have the loop around the lake, they again wanted access for their students and studies along the lake, but they also wanted to make a connection along Dendrinos Drive and to allow their faculty, staff, and students to be able to connect to the Beta Transit Station. We knew we wanted to get to Beta, we knew we wanted to allow for transportation opportunities along Cass, and we had been looking behind, if you recall that first map, along Wysong and Sybrant. But it's a much better facility going along Cass, so a separated trail facility along Cass connecting Dendrinos and NMC to Beta. And then the third major scope change was we are exploring moving the trail from the east side of the MDOT right-of-way. So it was a substantial boardwalk structure that would have been needed if we have to run the trail on the east side. Working with MDOT Rail, we are exploring the west side, and it appears that might be a possibility, which would be great for not only immediate construction costs, but also long-term maintenance, because it eliminates those boardwalk structures. So this is what the current design looks like today. Some just very minor modifications, but you can see now the connection from NMC to the Beta Transit Station, as well as in that corner is the proposed second bridge from Medali Park. The yellow dashed line on the east side is the existing trail. So that's the major two that you can see, it's probably, you would notice the kind of change in the red line between 14th Street, or I should say 16th Street at Right Brain and NMC. That's where we are exploring putting the trail on the west side of the active rail line instead of the east. So, to bring you up to speed, we've had about $1.2 million in grants submitted. Grand Traverse County just last week was awarded $600,000 from the DNR Trust Fund to put forward toward trail construction and completion. I have to pause here for a minute. It's not, that doesn't happen. That was an extraordinary lift by the Trust Fund Board. Those were 2 grants from Grand Traverse County fully funded. So $300,000 is the top that you can get in trail development or in development projects, and Grand Traverse County got 2 fully funded. So that was just remarkable. The other funds that have been applied for include MDOT, REC transportation grants. We are looking at a coastal zone management grant that we hope to apply with the Park Commission tomorrow. So we do have other outstanding state grants out there. Other funding sources for this project, which is estimated to be about $5.5 million right now, and that is construction, design engineering, as well as a maintenance fund. And Garfield, the county, and the city and TART have all been in discussions since the start of this very preliminary design about how we're going to take care of maintenance of the loop from now on. And so that is the idea of an $800,000 endowment set aside at the Community Foundation to support year-round preventative and operational maintenance of the loop. So that's another big piece of it. The other funding portions come from Brownfield. There's about $3.6 million earmarked for this, and then TART Trails will be contributing $400,000 to the development of this facility. So today, we're on our way with good news from the first grants that came in. Rotary did just grant TART Trails a $75,000 grant for development of the trail, and we're excited to keep pursuing and hearing more good news. So I'm here for questions and comments.
Tom?
You're doing a great job. How much more do you need to raise to get to the total?
Well, we have the current gap of about $250,000.
And the biggest portion is MDOT, or?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's just private. So
Okay.
MDOT is about a $600,000 grant.
Oh, so that's
that
on
we
top of
have.
this?
Yeah, that's MDOT's grant.
Yeah.
So we have $1.2 million that we applied for in state funds. We got $600,000 of that.
Okay, so you got half of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're
Excited.
you're short how much then?
It depends on how you want to do that math.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
What, are there any other trails in the county that get cleaned in the wintertime?
They all do now.
They all do?
Yeah.
Okay.
They all do. Well, I mean, the Vasa, clearly. We're not removing snow on the Vasa. We're packing it down and grooming it. But within the town, the TART Trail, Garfield, East Bay Township, and Acme have all been contributing to ensure that snow is removed from trails because they're part of our transportation network. And so is the Boardman Lake. The city does the TART and the Boardman Lake in town today. So
Okay, I
snow
didn't realize
removal's
all of them
important.
were. I thought maybe some of the ones that were, out of sight of the road
No.
were, okay.
No.
And then what is a standard trail width, and then in with shoulder, so what are the widths that we're looking at in those pictures?
So the standard trail width for an asphalt section is 10 feet wide, and anywhere where it's boardwalk, it's 14 feet.
Okay. And there's a little bit of a shoulder? It just
There's
doesn't-
always a 24-inch shoulder minimum. It
Okay.
depends on grades, and I'm not going to go into detail,
Uh-huh, okay.
but 10-foot paved, then the shoulder.
Anybody else? No? I think it's awesome, all that money coming in for trails. That's just great, and you've done a great job applying for everything, anything and everything that would go for a
There's no
trail.
couch cushion left unturned, I will
I'm
tell you
sure
that.
it sounds like it. So very, very good things. I know trails are very important to our community, so.
Well, we appreciate your partnership, because frankly, without all the governments contributing and being, playing a role in this effort, none of this would be possible. So thank you all for being part of this.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. We're going to move on to Martin Luther King Training Day. Do that?
And I think that Bill Hendry.
Bill? Yeah. Okay.
So got some initial ideas in terms of a variety of topics. We're still working on finishing up some of the details, but some people have already committed. I know there's some interest in harassment, which is not surprising given what's going on in the world these days. So we've got some harassment training planned, either from myself, but come to find out, one of our vendors, our Risk Management Association, Michigan Municipal Risk Management Association, they will also do some no-cost training for our employees, either now or in the future. So harassment was one of them we thought. Chris Forsythe, the prosecutor's office, has agreed to do ethics. Rachel Brochette-Rowe, quite a few years ago, did one. Oh, there he is. Hello, Chris. So they've graciously looked at that. I've sent him what Rachel did in the past in case he wants to build on that or do something.
What was that you said?
So ethics.
Oh, ethics.
Yes, ethical behavior, so on. And we do have a county code of ethics policy as well. So ITA, I've talked to Ming and John, and they're up for some topics there. The IT is always how to get most out of your software use in terms of information technology. So I don't have any firm ones, but I do have some surveys we've done in the past that can narrow down the focus on that. Our EAP, Catholic Human Services, I've used them in the past when I was at the college. So they usually have some really good things on personal development, maybe how to deal with your coworkers or your conflict and stuff like that. They're up for the challenge, as well as Chris Minkin from Nationwide has said yes, and to give equal footing for ICMA and MERS, I've also offered that to them as well as potential topics. I just haven't heard back from them yet. So, and if you have ideas of your own, that's great too.
Can you first explain, especially for the new commissioners,
I'm
why
sorry.
we ask this? Is because Martin
I'll
Luther
leap right
King
over
Day
that.
is off for the city, but not for the
Yes.
county? And explain that for
Yeah,
us.
historically, we have used this as a training day because the assumption is that we're closed, even though we're not necessarily closed. So we've used this as an opportunity to invest in our people. And so what we've done, and I look back quite a few number of years, is we've offered some training. Some departments do their own thing. They have specific training that they would like to do. And in this case, the plan would be to do training-specific offerings in the morning, and then in the afternoon, some of the departments are planning their own thing.
So you would want to make it sort of like
A day
a
of
conference
training.
where they can choose where they would like to go or
Yes.
sign up?
Yeah,
for?
kind of like a conference set up in the morning where there's like concurrent sessions running.
Okay.
What
Sure.
day is that?
Martin Luther King Day.
That means nothing to me. What
January,
day is that?
January 15th.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have that one
Yeah,
memorized. so-
that's fine. It's early this year.
Yeah, okay. And then have a comment?
Yep.
Okay. Or an offer.
Yeah.
I used to consult doing seminars on sexual harassment in the workplace. And the way that I did it was by doing vignettes and having people participate in the vignettes and decide whether it was harassing conduct or not. So I'm just throwing that out there, if
Nice.
you'd be interested in having a commissioner involved. I do have a little expertise in that area.
All right.
So
Good. That's great.
there may be others who
Okay.
have expertise.
Terrific.
Take it away,
I
Bob.
was just going to comment that it's not often you get an opportunity to have a commissioner harass you. so-
Only every meeting.
That's all.
That's right, yeah. It's going to be nice.
Not sexually, though.
Anybody have any suggestions or thoughts, or they're kind of
I
looking
think that's
for
a great
guidance from the
I think
board?
that's a great concept, having it be a menu option so that people can kind of go maybe where their interest lies.
Yep. Great.
Okay. Dan?
And it looks like those sessions will be in the morning.
It looks like the concurrent sessions would be in the morning, and then in the afternoon, some departments have used it for strategic planning. I know some departments have done department-specific training. I know Jim Baker already has some things for his equalization folks. So it's really on your own, but it's the department's call on what they're doing that afternoon. I know in some years, they've just gone and worked, did catch-up work and stuff like that.
So it'll be up to department head?
Yes.
I like
Yes.
that, good.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep, that way you get flexibility, because they can tailor half the day to their own needs.
yeah, cool.
Sonny?
We've probably done this at least
10, 12 years.
Oh,
maybe-
yeah,
maybe
at
more than
least
that, maybe more
14 or
than that.
15 I've seen.
Oh, well, see, now you're starting to date me a little.
Okay.
But
It's too late.
the fact was very simple. The city was closed, the courts were closed, and people expected that the county were closed, but we weren't. And so we came up with the concept of doing this, and it gave us an opportunity. You know, we started out with ADA and CPR and different types of things when we made the big push, when we bought the automatic external defibrillators. We did a massive amount of training for those during this time period. And we've just kind of developed a catalog of things that people can choose to do. And it's really worked out very well, I think. I think most of the departments are pleased with it. You know, there's always individuals that think it's a waste of their time, but, you know, the bottom line is some of them would rather get paid to not come to work, but then they're paid to come to a training. But the bottom line is, you know, it's an educational opportunity. And anytime we can encourage educational opportunities for ourselves and our employees, I think it's a good thing.
Okay. Any final ideas? Are you good?
I think we're
All right.
good. Everybody's
Okay.
okay with that? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Or Bob and Ron, we actually moved the Lafreniere property to last. So
I
we're gonna-
apologize, it took me
That's okay.
30 minutes on Woodmere
We
to get
understand.
here.
It's okay.
Ron was
Took me
stuck
3.5
on
to get from
Ron
Grand
was stuck on
Rapids to
Woodmere.
here
Yeah,
today, too.
it's
so
quite all right.
I need a drink. I could say that.
You were
one
doing
day.
great right before that, Bob. Okay, we'll move on with board rules and meeting schedule. The meetings lately were really long. And so administration was kind of wondering if we would change the meeting structure. Do you want to have 3 meetings in a study session? Sometimes there's, at the end of the month, there's 3 weeks from the last meeting to the next one, and we're wondering if anybody had any suggestions on switching it up a little bit. I'm not sure I'm in favor of going back to the committee structure, but, yes, Cheryl?
I think that, at least my understanding was that we were supposed to hold every Wednesday for either a meeting or a study session. I would like to see us still have the first and the third as our meetings, and then either the second or the fourth as a study session, depending on need. And I'd like to see it rotate during the month based on need and on commissioner availability, because I know especially over the next 3 or 4 months, some of us may be gone because we're lucky enough to maybe escape for a week or two, and it's nice if we can have as many of us here, and sometimes in the summer too. So, I mean, I would say if we could do our regular meetings, 2 meetings, and then have 1 meeting as a study session, so that we don't have to have these 4.5-hour meetings, because we have so much stuff on the agenda.
Isn't that kind of that's what we're doing now,
we're
it's just that
doing
we
now.
wind up canceling some study sessions because we don't, you mean make better use of the study sessions?
Well, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
That's what I mean.
okay. Bob?
Yeah, what I was gonna say is, yeah, I mean, if it looks like we're gonna have a lot of stuff, then maybe, you know, at the next regular meeting, say, all right, the next meeting will be a special meeting so that we can do action instead of
Okay.
just a study session.
So not officially change it, but just sort of make better
Yeah.
use of the Wednesdays.
Try to shoot for not having 4.5-hour meetings, whatever it takes to make that happen.
She gets grumpy, and I don't like sitting next to her when she does that.
Dan, you look
Me?
like you have something to say. You look like you had something to say, like you were about to.
No,
Okay.
it's just indigestion. Yeah.
He likes 4.5-hour meetings.
Yeah, right.
So you just want to leave it the way it is, first and third official meetings with the study sessions, but maybe try to work the agendas better so that
Yeah, I think at
things that
the-
are discussion only wind up on a study session instead of,
Yeah,
In a
I mean, at
regular
the
meeting.
agenda meetings, maybe take a look at it and say, hey, we think this might take a long time, so maybe
we put
move
it at a
some,
study,
yeah.
okay?
you know,
Okay,
so.
Sunny?
Well, and I think if we utilize the study sessions better, we can have a lot less discussion when the item is actually up for enactment. You know, we played this game both ways, where every time we have a study session, we make it a special meeting because they want to vote on it that night. But I'm not sure that if we use our study sessions better, we can't have the discussion, so when it actually comes time to the board meeting to
Yep.
make official action on that thing, we don't have to have that hour-long discussion on the issue. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think it's not the 2 meetings works out fine. I think it's that we don't necessarily are as effective as we should be with our study sessions.
Okay. How does the administration feel about that? Is that?
I think that's great.
Okay,
And I don't know if
that's okay.
that 4-hour meeting was because of having budget and other things.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a very unique situation, but I just was
It was. We haven't
looking
had
for
it.
ideas
We've had a
to
couple of them.
not
That
have
wasn't
that.
the only
Couple.
one.
Yeah. So
We're good
that's,
with that.
we'll work on it. Work on having more discussion things on the study sessions and decisions on the actual meetings,
Yeah,
Tom.
But I would encourage you not to make your study sessions into special meetings so as that you can take
No.
action. Let's leave the action to the first and third Thursday as it's advertised and published, and have the study sessions, but have the effective discussion, so when it comes time to have the action, we don't have to have repeat all the discussion.
Yeah, for some of these
Excellent.
topics that are going to be in-depth, you could have that at a study session
Right.
and get all that stuff out of the way, and then at the regular meeting, you don't have
And
that,
vote.
you don't have that hour and a half.
Then we just have a synopsis of the issues and vote.
Okay. Tom, did you have something else?
Well, if we use the second Wednesday of the month more often for study sessions and the fourth, less often, maybe cancel it further in advance so people can make other plans. And then, if there are 5 Wednesdays in a month, never use the fifth one.
No, we don't.
I didn't know if that was written down, but.
It's not generally. It's generally first and third and second and fourth, and nothing said about the fifth.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll leave that alone. I guess I had a few changes that I was going to talk to Chris about with the board rules. I don't know if anybody has anything, if they want to look over the board rules. Usually we look them over at the beginning of the year in January, so I would say if you have anything to add to the board rules or anything at all, to let Chris know your suggestions, and we'll see if there's anything anybody wants to do. Yes, Dan?
So
and then Tom.
you had some changes you want to make on the board rules yourself?
I had some changes I was going to bring forward. I've looked at other board rules for some other boards, and there was some things that I liked, things about, I like it at the, I don't know if it's part of our board rules, I like it at the city commission meetings where they, before public comment, they say something to the effect of, please be respectful, and things like that we don't say, and it seems to work, and just a few things that might, I don't know, just decorum, I suppose.
I guess it's nice to have, but we've had very few instances of that. I mean, whatever makes you happy. But like I said, I don't think we've had that many instances of people really being.
No, but like I said, I've read some other board rules, and it's nice to have in there. and
Well, you
just-
can bring them forward.
I will
we
bring it
can-
forward
and
then.
we'll kick them around.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But I just thought, if anybody else had anything?
What we might suggest is that, we have Chris or administration forward copies of the current board rules to all of us. I know we've all read it multiple times, and we've changed them several times over the years, but, maybe the current ones, and it'd be a little easier for us to say, yeah, I'd like to add this or take this out if we had a current sheet to look at.
And I bring it up because at the organizational meeting at the beginning of the year is a good time to look at them.
January
Look at them again and see if there's something you like, you don't like, something you want, you don't want,
Sure.
It's worth looking into for the organizational meeting. So I thought
Sure.
I'd bring it up today. Okay?
Question.
Yes.
Are we going to be doing a strategic planning session in January?
I'd like to.
Is there any way that at the December 20th meeting, you could vet some dates for us? Because I need as much heads up as I can get. I'm assuming you're going to want to do it on a weekend.
We can vet the dates right now if you want to.
Well, I didn't know if I want to give administration the leeway on that, so.
I don't have any constraints in January necessarily. I don't know if finance,
We can come back on the 20th. That way
Yeah.
we can take
Okay.
action on the 20th.
Yeah,
That'd be
Sound
great.
appropriate?
that's fine.
That'd be great.
Okay?
Thank
So we'll
you.
take that forward to the 20th.
Not that we have to, but I assume you're going to want to, so if you're going to do it, it'd be great to get a date. so.
you said it's typically on a Saturday?
I've only done one, and it was on a Saturday, so I
Was-
don't know what typical is.
Has been, but that's
I think
typically
so.
when we've done them, yes.
Is it always on a Saturday?
Seems like it was 2 days.
Strategic plan?
We've done it.
The year
we've done
before, it
both
was 2
ways.
days.
Yeah,
Oh, for the love of, no, please, please no.
we could make it 3 if you want.
I'll be good, just make it
A
one.
whole weekend retreat, Cheryl? Okay. One day.
We'll make it 3, all right?
We'll do one day. Okay. Moving right along. Lafreniere property.
Yes.
Let's hear about it.
Vicki and I have met with Community Mental Health, and this item is basically brought to you because there's a lot of discussion about the Lafreniere property lately, and Community Mental Health discussed the opportunity to work with the county to build a new facility on the Lafreniere property. At the same time, the county has talked about a jail at the site. Originally, when we bought this property, that was the original thought, is that a new jail would be built at the Lafreniere property. We've discussed a jail 12 years, 13 years, 17 years. It's been located in downtown Traverse City for quite some time. We know it's needed upgrades. And last week, the county board talked about a medical examiner and the possibility of having a morgue. And having a morgue on a county property is certainly an opportunity as well. So we wanted to bring this before you to look at possibilities and talk about discussion items on what needs to be out at the Lafreniere property, the timing of such, what partners should we be bringing to the table for this discussion, as well as we put the policy in there for property purchase. There's no opportunities to work government to government on if there's some synergies to work with Community Mental Health and the Health Department to sell property to another governmental unit. We couldn't do that without going out for an RFP. So is there an opportunity to really look at that policy and look at a waiver if there's an opportunity to serve clients better for county services from our Health Department and the Community Mental Health? Yes.
Before you get too far into this, I'm looking at the attachments A and B to the packet,
Yes.
and because I'm ignorant, I have no idea what these really mean. So under attachment A, for example, can you give us an idea of what we've got left that's developable, or?
Let me go up here. and
That'd be
then
great, thank you.
So this is attachment A that's in your packet.
Yes.
And this is basically attachment A and attachment B, if you put it as an overlay.
Oh, okay.
So this right here, in 2012, when we built the health department, the health department that is this building, the green roof building.
Yeah, I
Rick-
recognize that.
We looked to see what would be left to be able to be built at this site. And this would be a proposed jail that could fit, I don't have
300 beds.
300 beds, 145,000 square feet of space in this building.
Okay.
Then in the back here is another building that we could have, and right here is an extension, a possible expansion of the health department. And this here is a multi-story building that could be on this site as well, with the setbacks. And then the retention basins here would be just retention basins and parking.
What's the building in the very back that you pointed to? What's the square footage on that? I mean, I see a lot of space surrounding it. Could there be a bigger building there, or is that
could be a
size?
bigger building,
Okay, so you
yeah.
just kind of
When-
plunked a size down there.
If I recall correctly, when this site plan was developed, we tried to incorporate a, 300-bed jail law enforcement center.
Sure.
I believe the idea for the facility, the room in the back, or the building in the back, was a county facilities building. Because as you may recall, our current facilities building is at the Civic Center.
Yep.
Very, very small.
Yep.
and we have equipment and materials stored in God knows how many places throughout the county.
So where I'm seeing green space, Jean, to your left there, all that?
Right here?
Yeah, is that dedicated green space, or can that be developed as well?
It can be developed as well, but
I know there's an apartment complex there.
yes, there's single-family residential up there. It's a lot of residential. So one of the pieces that we want to be cognizant of is citing a jail. We have to ensure that we're going to reach out to the neighborhoods and that there's a buffer. I mean, there's not a buffer now, but we kind of like the buffer part of that when we,
Whether it
Push.
needs to be all of that or not, I think that's open for discussion.
but you can develop. That's the
It-
county's property.
Is there
and it
another
can
site
be
that you all
developed.
looked at for a jail?
Have we looked at other
Yeah.
sites? Sure.
Have,
But we really never found anything that fit. We looked at 5 sites when we did the Woodmere facility for the sheriff. Wasn't it 5 sites, Tom, that we looked at for that? And we ended up with the Woodmere site because the site that the county chose, the city turned down. And we ended up, the very next night, I made a motion that we just build the jail in the law enforcement center at Lafreniere, where we already owned the property. And I was asked to withdraw the motion and to cool my jets just a little bit. They're,
Well,
15 years
Gene, I'm
later,
only
they're
asking this
sufficiently
question
cool, but I still
because
wish we did
we
not have
haven't,
done.
we haven't dedicated anything there, right? These are concepts.
these are concepts,
Okay.
but, and the concept for the jail, I mean, that was one of the reasons we bought the Lafreniere. But as we're talking on visionary, on where does the county want to go, we know we have growing pains. And Community Mental Health, as a partner for us, kind of brought this to us. And at the time, there's nothing we can do about that, so we want to bring it to you. And when we talked to Wendy about this, and Carl, I have Carl from Community Mental Health and Wendy from our health director, there's some synergies and some opportunities. But before we talk about that, what are those opportunities for the clients? And is there space on this site for community mental health? So that's what we want to talk to you about tonight is, one, learn about what those client services are between Health Department and CMH, and how do we move forward with really doing the due diligence, and do you believe that there is enough due diligence to form subcommittees that Vicki and I can come back to administration, bring to you in January some opportunities for a subcommittee, what partners need to be at the table, and a timeline on getting this together.
Dan and then Bob.
Back, I think it was it in 14 that we went to jail school? I think it was. Anyway, I don't remember much of it. I remember it was a very complex planning situation. It requires a professional to guide you through it. And sometimes you think you got a piece of land that's just right for the jail, and guess what? It's not. But I do think, I don't know how to put this in a non-offensive way. I don't mean to be offensive. But I think on this land, or any land we're going to develop, I think the piece that needs to take precedence is the jail.
It's not offensive. That's why we're here today, is
Yeah.
to say,
I don't want to put a community mental health portion on that property. Now I'll not be able to build our jail. I think the jail comes first. To me,
Gotcha.
that's just me.
Yeah.
Whether we build it first or not, it's a different thing, but to know that we're going to build it needs to come before we allow them to.
And that requires significant planning. And so before we commit to community mental health, we got to know we can build a jail there.
Do we have the space?
Yeah, and then how do we fund it and all that stuff? I think we need a new jail. But I think it should be the captain of the team on this piece of land. That's just my feelings.
Bob?
Who would pay for the community mental health building if it was built? Would that be the county that paid for that, or is that the CMA?
community mental health.
Okay. I mean, that was going to be my line too, is we really need, I mean, Or on borrowed time, I think, with the jail. You know, I don't know if we can financially afford right now to build one, but it would be nice to start looking at numbers and stuff.
So if they were to build and I know that you're at your early days, you're just looking for interest to move forward on this, but if they were to build, at their expense, a building on our property, what would be the ownership?
Of the CMH building,
Yeah.
CMH would own that building.
They'd own the building, but we'd own the land that it sits on?
Or they would buy the land from the county.
Would it be taxable?
No, community mental health is a
And would we
governmental,
sell it at fair market value?
typically that's how you, yes.
Do we know what the value is? Do we have any idea what the fair market value of the parcel would be? Are you talking the parcel that's fronting
Yeah, the one up in the corner there. Yep.
that great big piece? I mean, that's bigger than the health department, right? Looks like it's bigger than the green roofed building.
I think you could, I mean, this was just a schematic, I mean, you can put it this way.
Oh, I don't care which way you put it. I'm
And it can
saying,
be
I'm
tall.
looking at the square footage. It looks like it's bigger than the other
Do we remember
two
what the square
buildings.
footage of the
It
health
looks real
department
big.
is?
Wendy, do you know the square footage of yours? This building is 38,000 square feet.
That building is 38,000 square feet. How big is the health department?
I'm sorry, I don't have that
Wendy, do you know?
information.
And Community
Wait,
Mental Health
wait.
says that they need 56,000, so it would have to be taller.
How big is the,
Taller or situated differently on the property.
Okay? Yes, Dan?
I should raise my hand rather than put it out.
No, it's fine.
The current community mental health building, how many square feet is it?
According
is-
to the notes, 41,500.
And they need something bigger than
They need
that?
50% more than that, or nearly 50% more than that.
Just out of
You know, if
curiosity,
you're
do we have any use for the
56 to
current
60, you know,
community
it's-
mental health building?
That would
They
be
own-
discussed,
Okay.
if we're
Whether
interested
there'd
in
be
that.
any use for us
Do-
in having that building?
Oh, because we don't own that building.
I understand that, but we're
Okay.
looking at a real estate transaction.
That's
I'm
true.
wondering if a trade might be of any use to us. I'm just throwing it out there.
Were you talking about the existing
That's
CMH
correct.
building?
Yes.
It's over there by Veda.
Yeah, I know. The old Red Mill property.
You
Go
mean
ahead.
that toxic site over there?
You know, we talked about citing a jail here 2002, 2003, so it's been a while. At that time, you know, we had the experts look at that site, and it was deemed to be a very good opportunity for us. You know, one thing that we got into a discussion is, we talk about a law enforcement center. The sheriff is still required constitutionally to maintain an office within the city, within the county seat. So the sheriff would still have to retain an office within the city. This
Well,
is
that's
not-
just like the county clerk,
I'm
and you
just-
said, you know,
I'm
all they
just-
have to
I'm
do
just
is have
saying
a
that got
desk.
to be a big, long discussion with some people at the time, was that the sheriff had to be in the county seat. You know, would we...
That's statutory?
Yes. We read if you read the articles in the ticker this morning, some of the comments had to do with the fact that the jail has to be next to the courthouse. Well, it doesn't have to be, because it's all throughout the country, there are jails that are completely separate from the courthouse. One of the things that I had talked a little bit about with some people not that long ago was when Pugsley closed, whether or not there would be any use for the county to use Pugsley. It's a long ways from town. You know, the transportation costs are going to become very, very high. You know, I think if we had the opportunity to talk about a joint jail with Wexford County, that may have worked, but Wexford, as we all know, has constructed their new jail, and
It's
they're
really nice. I
happy.
was just there today.
But, you know, regional jails are always a real fun thing to talk about. Go from one side of this country to the other, and you won't find three of them that work. It just never happens. You know, it's easy for people that don't understand the process things to talk about regional jails, but they just simply never work.
Dan and then Cheryl.
I was hoping tonight that we'd have a chance to ask the sheriff or Captain Ritter to maybe speak about the jail and what his expectations and hopes might be.
Okay, who wants to go first, the sheriff or Captain Renner? They're pointing at each other.
Thank you. Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County Sheriff. So a couple comments first on the property. I would encourage you to look out for the county's best interests first, and consider all possible uses for that property for the county. I have no idea where the square footage calculation came from a new jail. We have several concerns. Do they include facilities for parking and storage, a recreational vehicle building to move there, or all that equipment? So a little concerned about the square footage. If it's just office spaces, we need more than that. Number two, I know the buffer would be a concern. The CMH building on that property, if they need to be close to the health department, there's vacant property to the south of that. I know it's been on the market. I was by there today. I didn't see the signs there. Maybe the listing's expired, maybe the property is sold. But I would encourage you to make sure that all the county's needs are taken care of first. Maybe the Commission on Aging goes up there. Maybe there's a facility for their trucks and their garage and their housing. Those sorts of things before you start selling property or letting somebody else use it. This property could be built out very soon. And where are you 20 years from now or 30 years from now? You're built out. You're going to have to start going someplace else. So the concept of having this building could be there. These offices could be there also. So I think you need to reevaluate the plan because there are several options. As far as the jail and sheriff's office are concerned, our biggest concern would be we need to be together. We have 3 separate buildings right now. It's very difficult to operate out of 2 different buildings. We don't, at the law enforcement center, we don't see any of the staff at the jail. We have to make an effort to go there. We don't see the officers. There's that camaraderie between the patrol officers and the corrections officers. They don't see each other in casual settings, in the locker room and changing. It's hard to know the people, especially with the amount of turnover that we've had. I'm embarrassed to say that I probably wouldn't recognize a lot of the corrections officers if I saw them in Myers, just because there's not that connection there. It's hard to do business that way. I don't get a chance to sit down and just BS with Captain Ritter about what's going on. It's a phone call. It's very impersonal. So being in the same spot is very, very important to us. Along with that, we're with the city police now. Commissioner Wheelock indicated in trying to locate a office building with the city police, they won't leave the city. So that will be a split. If we leave town, that will be a split. It's worked very well. Maybe it's time to cut ties, and maybe we're both big enough now we can operate independently. It has its advantages, yes, absolutely. There are some drawbacks being in the same building with somebody. Yeah, we have our squabbles over space and square footage, and what are you doing putting this stuff? It's half our room, half. So there are those squabbles. So that would go away. They will not move out Pillafrainer, I'm sure. I think the closest spot years ago was a new administrative building just south of Boone Street on the vacant property west of Woodman. And it was a couple hundred yards outside of the city, and that was no, as I recall, I had no part in those discussions at that time. So that split will occur. As far as cost for a facility, we've done some fairly generalized costs, and it just depends on the construction cost, and what do you want in the building, what do you want the offices to look like, and what's the makeup of other areas outside of the jail building, like a fenced-in storage area, an impound lot, a space to store the vehicles we have. In 2010, 11, we built a recreational vehicle building. We're out of that. It's full. It's full. It's not big enough. So even by putting things outside in the fenced-in area, it's been great. Looking down the road, maybe that's a new Commission on Aging facility. Maybe that's a new maintenance facility. I don't know, but that's property that we own, that the county owns. If that is sold, if we move out of that, the money gained from that has to be put back into a law enforcement use. It can't just go back into the general fund. So we'd have to, quote, repurpose that money, and I'm sure that a new building would be possible. We'd have to look at that. But because of that, with seizure money, there are certain rules that we have to follow. So those are some of our concerns. We'd really need to sit down and say, this is what a new modern facility would look like, and what about 20 years from now? Is that going to be big enough 20 years from now? And if it's not, we can't go anyplace. So
I have a question for the sheriff.
Sure, go ahead.
Is Pugsley in Grand Traverse County?
I'm sorry?
Is Pugsley in Grand Traverse County?
Yes. Yes.
And can you give us an idea of how the judges feel about arraignments and other type of hearings via Polycom as opposed to having the criminals brought into court?
Right. I think they're very receptive to that. Technology has been changing and changing. Captain Ritter can speak to that. I can tell you that as far as transportation, if the facility moves from where it is now, what happens when inmates need to go to court? In the Hall of Justice, there are 3 detention rooms, which we can't use. They were built for detention rooms, and we can't use them. Because if you have somebody in this room, and somebody in this room, and somebody in this room, you need a corrections officer watching these people, and these people. That's 3 corrections officers. In talking with Captain Ritter earlier today, the security electronics upgrade for the jail, that process is starting. We will be able to put security cameras in those rooms. We're not sure on the cost, but security cameras, because now the cameras that we're able, with the upgrade, we can use IP systems, and so we don't need the hard wires going back and forth. So the judges are using that. Captain Ritter can speak to that. It's been suggested that if there's a jail facility off-site, that there could be a courtroom there where the judges would go to the inmates. Well, I'm a little hesitant on saying, yeah, they'd be willing to
I think the mountain comes to
leave
Mohammed.
on a day like today
Yeah.
and go up and hold court for a couple hours and then go back to their chambers.
But the point is that if there is a possibility of Pugsley being even considered, I think would be prudent to look at it. It is an existing jail. I mean, it is an existing medium, I think, was it low security or medium security?
Level 1, I believe.
Level
High
1
security, yep.
prison, so it already has a lot of systems in place. I know I just conducted a 2-day trial in Wexford today, and the respondent was in prison at Kinross. So, I mean, he was right there, he just wasn't right there. If technology is something that we could utilize, maybe Pugsley becomes more viable.
Yeah, I think one of the issues is that wouldn't be a turnkey operation for us, in that that facility was designed and built differently than a new modern jail would be built.
But the cost to upgrade it may be significantly
Yes.
less than the cost of starting from ground zero at Lafreniere.
Yes.
I'm just saying, I think it would be fiscally responsible of us to at least explore it. I mean, I understand the state owns it, they're not using it. So I just want to throw that out there,
Sure.
because I
Okay.
think we're brainstorming tonight, so.
Yes, we are. Tom?
Yeah, on the Pugsley thing, it'd be nice to be able to, from my point of view, to be able to tell the public, why we would or why we wouldn't, and not, ignore it as a possibility, because they know it's there. So, to have good reasons as to like it or to not like it, in other words. But what do you think about jail size? What's your opinion on that compared to the one you have now? Is 300 beds?
We haven't spent any time looking at that. Depends, I don't think the population of this area is going to be going down. And when the population goes up, our job gets busier, more people, more crime. So
How many beds now?
I'm sorry?
How many beds now?
That we can, 168, but effectively, we can use 162. However, to be operating efficiently, to be able to move people around and classify them, separate and segregate them, we should be at 85% of our rated capacity, which means that we should have about 142, I believe, and a half inmates in jail. More than that, it becomes burdensome.
Is there anything else that's missing? Any other types of facilities that are associated with the jail that's missing in the current one?
Judge Stanton has, she's made comments before, she would be on board for a juvenile detention facility here. Would that be part of this? I don't know.
Yeah, that actually brings up something else.
She's made those comments that she would love to have a facility in town for juvenile detention. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, I went to
Yes.
the volunteer meeting last night, the recognition for people who help out with...
Probate court
Yeah.
volunteer?
mhm. Yeah. So the youngest person that's gone to Roscommon might have been 9, which is kind of startling. But most of them are 13 to 16. And then the law is going to change to include 17. Are we...
Well, they're looking at that whole system. So that could make a big difference. I don't know how many
So that's not-
17-year-olds
No.
we have. I mean, they may
No.
come in, but they may not be sentenced to stay there. So
Question?
it's 300 seems like a lot, but 30 years from now, is that going to be enough? And if it's not, is there a provision made to just expand that? The other thing is, I like to use this reference. The jail, the old jail, the first jail, the new jail, was built in 1964. And in 1964, the way they built jails was a linear jail, a long hallway with cells on each side. That's the way they built them. That's what they have over there. When they expanded that in 1984, 20 years later, they don't build linear jails anymore. No, we don't do that anymore. It's a podular design. So at the west end, there are 2 large pods that have, I believe, 16 cells in each pod. Different way to do jails. 20 years later, in 2004, they added on. So you can see, what I'm trying to say is 300 enough? Well, in 1964, this was enough. 20 years later, it's not. And 20 years later, it's not again. They don't build linear jails. They don't build podular jails, direct or indirect supervision. So that's the 2004 edition. So in 20 years, these 3 designs, they may have some other way of constructing jails. So there's 3 different designs under one roof, which most of you know is just awful conditions to operate out of. So when I say, is 300 enough? I don't know.
Cheryl?
So I know that when Munson did their addition, the emergency room and the Heart Wing, they built it in such a way that they could go up. So it was built intentionally for expansion.
Right.
Presumably, we would have smart architects who could help us design in such a way that we could go up or presumably we could go out. Have you been to the new Wexford facility, which is a 300-bed jail? It is
No,
a,
it's not 300.
I was
It's
just-
158 plus 6 plus 2, I believe.
okay, well, I would, whatever.
No, I haven't.
I
But
would
I've
li- I
been to the
would-
Leelanau County Jail, which was built
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Right.
Very envious. I resisted going up there because I knew what our facility was, how we operated.
Yep.
And it's not opulent. I mean, it's very basic, a very basic construction. They have room for expansion of their offices inside. They have plenty of room to add space inside, which works very well.
Well, I guess my point was that we have a number of opportunities regionally where we can have a field trip. We don't have to go to Colorado for jail school. We can visit Wexford, we can visit Leelanau. I think Benzie is in the process of building a new facility. And I would propose that we do that. I mean, I don't think tonight we were going to resolve the issue of jail. We were really talking about land. And so my sense is that what the sheriff has pointed out to us for consideration is, do we want to make sure we have enough land for our own use before we start selling it? And so I think that's the point that he made.
Have any or all of the commissioners toured our own jail?
Yeah, I have.
I have.
Yes.
What did you say?
Not as a.
Have all of us toured as an
Grand Traverse County.
outsider
Yeah,
the
yeah.
jail?
There was that one incident.
You have not.
Yeah, at
And
one time.
Ron has not. Sonny, you have, I'm sure. Okay. And
But I-
have you been in there, Dan?
There's that
I've been
500
toured.
section when you're
Yeah.
walking down the hallway, and I'm not sure whether your bar's on both sides. I'm never sure whether I'm on the inside or the outside. That bothers me a little bit, but.
I know when I was on that tour, you wondered if you're going to get locked in there forever, because it's just like a Escher.
Nervous the
drawing, you know?
whole time.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I guess
Very much.
one of the things that I'd like to point out is, in 2004, we had the Blue Ribbon Jail Committee that talked about the capacity, the projected capacity for Grand Traverse County. There were at that time, I believe, 5 methods by which it was projected that we used, as outlined by the Department of Justice, of how to anticipate how many beds you were going to need. All 5 methods came out between 290 and 320 beds. So the 300 bed idea was pretty much, we were right where we needed to be.
Right.
I think the biggest thing, when we talk about our jail, and we can sit back, we can talk about the deficits, which there's a lot of them. But we need to remember that the people that spend the time in our jail are our employees. And the working conditions in our current jail are simply not acceptable to ask people to do. You want to know why we have so much turnover problem? You want to know why we have trouble retaining corrections officers? It's because the condition of the facility by which you're asking them to work in every day. It's not just the type of people they have to work with, because if this is your profession, you're understanding that those are the kinds of people you're going to work with. But the conditions that they are asked to work in every day are, on the verge of being deplorable.
Does, Dan, and then I'm going to see if Captain Ritter has anything to say. He's
I just
nodding,
want to
so.
stress,
Yes.
I know that the new way now is not to go to Colorado, but to bring the experts here. But from the very beginning, let's get an expert, and let's deal with our jailers, our sheriff and our captain. And right from the very beginning, as we talk about it and explore it, I believe we need them on board.
And we've done that. They've been here, on multiple occasions.
Things have changed.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, they sent a new guy here right now, and he can help us avoid a lot of mistakes.
Well, and we had, David Bennett, for example, was here, and he told us we shouldn't have any jail beds. So there's no reason anyone should be in jail. We should be having alternative sentencing for everyone, and it was.
That wasn't helpful.
If you want to have a real discussion, ask Tom Power for his opinion of David Bennett.
No, thank you.
Well, I just know that that's one of the things I came away with from jail school, and if the sheriff or the captain wants to comment on that, I know that those type of people in the beginning are really important.
Does Captain Ritter have some comments? Thank you.
Good evening. I just kind of reiterate what Dr. Latham just said. If we're looking at this again and this is getting some traction, I think where we left off in the process last time after the Planning a New Institution School was we were placed to start a needs assessment for Grand Traverse County. That is hiring a consultant that comes in that looks at what we looked at through the PONY program, what the studies were, and then part of that process is site selection. That's all in that needs assessment. And NIC has a list of people they recommend to do that. But the PONY program has changed. You no longer go to Aurora, Colorado for that program. They send the PONY program here. That way as many stakeholders as possible can be involved in it locally. So it may be a good idea to look at that and start from the PONY program right at the beginning again and move forward.
We've done this twice already.
Well-
In the last 15 years.
And let me just suggest that, like I said, Wexford just built a facility. I mean, they just opened it. Benzie is building a facility. Let's see if we can learn something from them before we go out and spend $50,000 to hire a consultant to come here. I mean, you've already done an awful lot of work. You've done a lot of work. And we're not looking for a site. We have a site. We're not novices here. We just need to figure out how much do we need, and then how are we going to pay for it? That's really what we need. Isn't that where we got stuck before?
I think basically.
I mean, just to put a
Yep.
fine point on it? Okay.
That pretty
Dan?
much puts a pin in it.
Okay. I hate to butt heads with you, but I think we are novices. One of the things I learned in that school is that they showed us several incidences where but boards went on their own thinking they knew what to do, and they ended up with nightmares. We need a pro, that's my opinion, right from the beginning. So,
I'm not suggesting we don't need a pro. I'm saying that we should talk to people that are within our circle of influence who have just done this and find out what they did.
I'm not
Okay? That's all I'm saying.
I'm not against that. but-
Okay.
But once we've done that, we're still going to have to go through the PONY program, I think. And, because you can really mess this up. It's a $50 million building minimum.
Well, that's a much bigger number than I was told. 33 to 35 is what I was told.
Okay, whatever, but we got to do it right.
Okay, so I'm watching body language. Nate, do you have anything to say? Okay, just checking. Bob, and then Ron.
I mean, I'm all for the jail too, but we still need to, I know it's going to be a long process, but we got to wait and see what this new bill that the governor's going to sign for the pension reform means to us. Because we fall directly into what I'm seeing as the realm where emergency managers, unless they accept our,
Exception.
We
should get the
so
exception.
hopefully.
There are exceptions for those who have made strides.
But
to-
that also means that moving forward,
Yep.
the boards are actively looking at that.
Absolutely.
So
You bet.
there hopefully is a way to get all this together. I mean, like I said, we do need it, but I don't know what we can afford right now, so.
Ron?
I just want to repeat what the sheriff had said, that we need to look out for our best interest when it comes to our properties. This is a high-dollar piece of property. Pugsley, not so. There's a nice piece of property down around the corner on Keystone and such that community mental health could go on there if they could strike a deal with Parks and Rec. And it's not that far from the health department. Short beta bus drive there. That's just my 2 cents on it, and I think we need to keep our property. After all, we paid $1.2 million for that piece of property that we have there. So.
Okay, so you're good.
Okay.
Let's
Thank you.
switch gears
Thank you
from
very much.
jail
Sheriff,
to
thank you.
morgue. What do we think about a morgue? That was in the notes too, that we had,
Well, I thought we were
We're
going
looking
to
at-
look at, putting together a committee to look at the
We are.
feasibility of a regional,
yeah,
a regional
Next week.
forensic pathologist, et cetera.
make sure you show
I
up.
wasn't here. Was I thrown
No,
under
you
the
were not.
I said next week, so make sure you're here.
I mean, it just seems like, that to me, that is a very exciting idea, and I see that as a possibility to be an income generator for us if we were to be the regional facility, because everybody's got to have, every county has to provide pathology and all of that stuff. They have to do all that. So if we could be the go-to site, maybe that would make money for us for a change.
Worth the look.
I mean, it would be, if it could pay for itself as opposed to being a drain on the program. I mean, I don't even have any idea how much space something like that would need, but when you're talking about a morgue, it strikes me that you would want to have a facility. You'd want to have an operatory, you'd want to have, I mean, you'd want to have the whole thing. And I don't know how much space you'd need for that. I mean, does Wendy have any idea how much space you'd need for a regional, what's the term of art I'm struggling for? Forensic pathologist, I guess, basically.
I haven't looked at space needs. I know that the one at Munson right now is limited, and it works for, I guess I'm just going to have to be blunt and say words that might not sound great. It works great for holding bodies when someone passes, and they do like less than 20 internal hospital autopsies a year. And that's done by their pathologists on staff who have zero interest in doing full-on forensic autopsies and medical exam work. It would not suffice for a regional system.
But how much space would we need if we were to build something like that?
I could look into that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and we'd have to, this property would potentially make sense. Partnering with Munson is another option.
Or not.
It'll be more complex. And we certainly partner with them on a lot of things, but it slows things down. And I will say, I sit on lots of committees with Carl, and we partner on a lot of things. We didn't request that the mental health be specifically on this property. I don't know if that's we partner with them on things, and we're using some projects right now where we're screening, but things are done more through innovation and technology, and so it certainly would be great to have them in the locality, I think even for the jail. Even Commission on Aging with some of the services, there's definitely a high and growing demand for mental health services in our area, especially relating to substance abuse and things like that, but they don't have to be on the property right next to us. But we would certainly support them being in close proximity. It's a lot easier. We have a lot of patients that we would cross-refer, kind of point and say that's where you need to go and get them an appointment. But I would echo what the sheriff said in that we need to make sure we're planning for the county and what the county really needs in the future. And from my perspective, a morgue would be something that would be high on my list.
And when you say morgue, are you talking forensic? I mean, what I'm talking about is the whole enchilada, not just the storage place, but an operatory, a regional forensic pathologist. That we'd get rid of Stryker, we'd get rid of
with some office space to support that. Yeah, I could certainly look into and get more specifics on that.
Are there any in the state right now? Regional?
Well, there was one that was built in Newaygo and Mecosta counties, and it was just a building, but they didn't staff it. So it's crazy. They got this big grant for it, but it's not used, and
It's just a building?
It's just a building, but it's not staffed, so it's not really an option for anyone. It's not accredited, you basically have to have your own pathologist, you can rent the space. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
But does the building suffice for what?
I have not been to it.
Okay, I was just going to say, you could look and see what it costs them.
Use it as a model.
Yeah, and I know.
Get a rough estimate.
Yeah, and that's certainly one we could look at. You'd have to have enough that you would be able to handle a certain, I guess, caseload is what I'll call it, and have enough to be able to store any that come and go, and then any that are unclaimed as well until they're.
Sure. Yep.
Sunny had a question.
At least in my mind, when I talk about a regional pathology department, if you will, I connect that to the health department. And the building that we currently have, the new building that's at the health department, which is only 5-6 years old, was designed with the opportunity to put a pretty sizable addition on that back side. So, in my mind, if we're talking about building a county pathology department, it would be connected in direct conjunction with the building that we already have. And there's projected addition space in the site plan for the health department connected right to that. I believe that Grand Traverse County Health Department and Community Mental Health both serve many of the same people. So somewhere or another, the synergy makes some sense, but so does the Commission on Aging. Commission on Aging is a Grand Traverse County department. I want to make sure that we've housed them properly before I worry about making a place for community mental health. I'm certainly not at this point anywhere near making a commitment to community mental health that, we can find you space, because I'm not sure that we can. When I look at the pictures and it looks like a lot of green space to me. It looks like there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, wasted space on this 27-acre parcel of property when I look at the site plan. But, some of that comes with parking and landscaping and retention ponds and those kind of things that are required for the rain and the snow wash off. So, we'd really have to sit down and talk about what that is and how much it has to have. But, I think what the theme here tonight is, first, we need to make sure that we meet the needs of Grand Traverse County today and well into the future. And that, when the board bought this piece of property in 2000, I just recently came here, for like a couple of years. But, it was a big decision. We spent a lot of time dealing with, whether that was the right thing for us to do, whether this was the right place for us to go. And we did not have the growing pains in this facility or Commission on Aging or anywhere else at that time. But we had the foresight to purchase this piece of property. We've had all kinds of discussions since about whether we paid too much, whether it was the right piece of property, whether the public services building is the right building. There's a lot of things about the public services building. I'd like to gut the inside of it and start over and just use the square footage, because there's so much space in there that we truly cannot utilize to its maximum efficiency just because of the way the building is. But, that's a whole nother discussion. But I think the key piece of this is that we have to meet the needs of Grand Traverse County first. And if we want to talk about a mortuary service, whatever pathology department, I believe that should be constructed in direct conjunction with the health department.
Dan?
Can I just add one comment on that?
Yeah, and then Dan.
We certainly would welcome maybe adding an addition for office space. If we're going to build actual morgue, we probably would want to have that be a separate building with separate ventilation and some other considerations based on what I'm hearing from forensic pathologists. But it would have to have its own air exchange and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So we'd have to figure that out. But certainly within close proximity, and it would need to have some sort of security.
Dan?
Well, I don't want to be a wet blanket, but I love this. What we're doing now is the kind of thing boards should be doing, thinking in the future, broad brushstrokes. But remember, we're not even funding the upkeep of our existing buildings. And so, in all this planning, we need to plan for that too, because in the future, we're going to have a brand-new building, and are we going to fund for upkeep of that building? Am I making sense? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but you also, it's a valid concern to say, look, here's what we're paying right now for these services. Can we do it cheaper or even in-house for the same and have the building paid for and that kind of stuff? And I see what you're saying about, getting some capital in there for capital projects, but this may be elevated because of all the opioids and everything else that's going on. It's not going to get any better, unfortunately, I don't believe. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, I just want to plan for it, because maybe in building new buildings, we won't have to patch up the old buildings. We can abandon them and sell them.
Exactly.
Okay, but we need to think about it.
Yeah.
About how we're going to take care of these buildings. Because we got a bunch of them we're not taking care of right now.
We have a current jail and a Front Street building that the Commission on Aging and MSU are in, that the maintenance costs and utilities on those two buildings are ridiculously priced for the square footage that you're
You
serving.
could almost.
And we've got a roof at the Civic Center that needs to be replaced. We got a lot of stuff to fix.
Okay. I meant to have Wendy stay up there because it says in the notes that Wendy has an overview of a project and program that was launched this summer to link people. Do we have? No. You don't? Okay. Then I will give a chance to Community Mental Health. I have several members of Community
Can I
Mental
ask
Health.
one more question about the?
Yes.
Even though we would be replacing the current people that we're contracting with on the medical examiner, we could ask them for some advice on size and what a diagram would look like, since we're already doing business with them. And it's obvious that we would be doing this to replace them in the future, but I think they would understand.
Well, and I think they support that idea.
Absolutely.
Yes. Carl is coming up to tell us from Community Mental Health's point of view.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here this evening, commissioners and administrators. And just to give you a little background to this discussion tonight, the building that we have on Hall Street is between the Beta transfer station and North Peak. And we've realized for quite a while that we have issues regarding adequate parking space and adequate office space in that three-story building. So we've begun our due diligence in terms of looking at options. And in fact, we have an ad hoc committee that is looking at our Traverse City office on Hall Street to look at various options. The parking down in that area has just gotten worse and worse and worse. I mean, we have people spilling over from Hotel Indigo parking in our parking lot, and North Peak we either spill over for them for the lunch crowd, and we provide them free parking after 5 o'clock, which is pretty good deal. And so we've been talking internally and with our board about, okay, what do we do? Because that space is pretty maxed out the way it's designed now for our staff. We have about 123 staff who work in that building. We have parking spots for 83 cars. So, and right now is to take some of the pressure off, we've leased 20 spots from the Downtown Development Authority to alleviate some of that parking pressure. We've utilized some of the people who we serve at Travers House in the summertime to really monitor the parking lot because, with the summer vacationers and so forth, a spot's a spot, and it doesn't matter if there's a sign there that says you're going to get towed or whatever. It's just tremendous. We do a lot of training of our providers, so that adds pressure on the parking. So we're in a position where we've just decided that we're going to begin our due diligence and look at options, knowing that the county had the property off of Lafreniere. We had some early discussions. We had talked with Gene and really wanted to just explore various, possibilities. And so, we appreciate your consideration of our potential interest at your Lafreniere property, but understand that you want to keep that for county-specific needs, and that's fine. And if that changes, we'd be happy to. As this ad hoc committee just began meeting in October, so it's not like we're on a tight deadline to do something, right away. We want to do something that's right, that's going to be responsive for the people we serve. There's advantages being there by the Beta transfer station. A lot of the people we serve take the bus system. But, we could do things with the bus system if we were in another location too. I think Beta has indicated that they'd certainly be willing to be flexible in that and so forth. So, with me tonight is Randy Camps, who's one of our board members here in Grand Traverse County. He's actually chairing that ad hoc committee. And our finance director, Lori Fisher, is here. And our coordinator of buildings and grounds, Harold Muez, is here. So those are the four of us who came tonight to listen to the discussion. So thank you for your consideration. If things change or your interest changes, we'll be glad to process that information as we do our due diligence. But thanks.
Tom?
Do you own the building that you're in now?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
And do you have some other sites that you're looking at besides the one at the county property?
We've just begun, so
Okay.
we will be looking at other sites, other properties, and again, doing it in a very planful way.
Are there other types of businesses that you want to be close to?
Well, I mean, there certainly was, some potential synergies with being close to the health department. I think that, bless you, that's one consideration, but there isn't another area that at least we've identified now that says, okay, this organization is here and makes sense for us to be there.
Like the medical center area?
That's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'd look at those different synergies and collaborative opportunities. But the main issue right now is where we are crunched. So we either have to look at, we've talked about a parking deck, and you all know how complicated that can be, and the disruption that would cause and so forth. We're going to probably look into some architectural changes of the building as it exists now to see what remodeling would mean. We can put a fourth story on that building. But as I look down the road, if you look at the different development, the projects that are going on Front Street and Pine Street possibly and so forth, there's just going to be a continued crunch in that area, I believe. It's just going to become more and more congested. So we're going to have to deal with both the parking issue and the office space. So.
Sonny had something, and then Cheryl.
Well, I think
Okay.
my point was, and I made the comment earlier that I wasn't prepared to commit tonight to something for CMH, but I'm also not prepared to say no. I think you talk about due diligence. I think we have to do our due diligence too, to make sure that we have met our needs first. And if there is an opportunity to partner with CMH or whatever to be more efficient, I'm all about doing that. But I'm not prepared to say yes tonight. But I'm also not saying no necessarily. I think we talk about due diligence, but we have a lot of questions we have to answer too, and unfortunately, you're dealing with trying to figure out where to site your facility. We're trying to deal with multiple departments, multiple groups that have to be all coordinated together too. So it's a little complicated around the edges.
Early days.
Sure.
Early days.
Early days.
Early days.
Early days. If I get up any earlier, I'll bother not going to
No,
bed.
we're at the beginning, in other words. We're
We are.
sort of at the beginning.
That's why we're
Early
having these
days.
brainstorming sessions.
Yeah, so it's really, I appreciate the discussion and the feedback and the understanding, and certainly as we both go along, CMH and the county, will things happen or things change, I'd be happy to have more conversation.
Okay.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you all.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, good, yeah,
But
go
in
ahead.
all these examples, we should also think about a future use for this building, as an alternative to any of these other things that we're looking at, because this building is obviously something that we've talked about changing our role with, so.
Okay. Lots of good discussion. That's what the study sessions are for. So, with that, we will move on. It says discussion, but we already did that. We'll move on to second public comment. Pretty much given everybody a chance at this point, but if there's anybody else out there that would like to make any kind of public comment? Any of our students want to make a public comment? No, sorry. They called them out at East Bay the other day, so I thought I would do that. All right, second public comment is closed, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Carol, was there a reason that the property acquisition and disposal policy was included in this packet? Or was that just for future?